What's up, guys? Today I'm bringing you just a quick deck breakdown. We're not going to do any gameplay for this one today. We're just going to jump right into talking about how this deck functions, the game plan of the deck, a little bit of mulligan tips, a little bit of matchup tips, things like that. We'll keep it pretty short. On top of this, there's an article releasing on runeterraccg.com that I wrote directly about this deck with a full breakdown of all those things I just mentioned, but fleshed out fully in article form. So once that's live as well, I'll make sure to put that link into the description of the video below. And the link to this video should be in the article as well. So you should be able to find all the content you want on this deck. It's a deck I've been working on for a bit and played it a decent amount in the last two patches or so, and it feels pretty strong. But this most recent patch buffed dragons, so that's why we're going to talk about what I call D&D. This is Dungeons or Dungeons and Dragons. Well, yeah, that's where the title comes from. But it's Daybreak and Dragons. So it's Leona and Shyvana. So recently in patch 1.14, we got Shyvana buffed to a 4 attack. She's feeling a little bit better, and we also got the Eclipse Dragon buffed up to a 7/7, which is a beefy buff. This unit's really strong now. So the deck essentially functions as a dragon deck late game. We're using things like the Screeching Dragon, Eclipse Dragon, Infinite Mind Splitter, Shyvana, all that type of deals with the standard concerted strike and things like that, as well as rallying to finish off the game. But one of the dragon's biggest weaknesses is the fact that they don't have a strong early game. Right, there's no dragon that costs less than 4, and on top of that, the 2 drops and things require some beholding of dragons, and they're pretty decent in their own. But here we want to actually pair it with a stronger early game, so we're going to pair it with the Daybreak mechanic, which I found out actually suits the list really well. So here we're just running the, as we call it at the TwinSunz podcast, the SSPL, so the Soldier, Shield Bearer, Priestess, and Leona. We're running that curve, which is super solid, keeps us, really on curve, powerful units, as well as card generation from Priestess, and that card generation continues on to the turn 5 with Raven. So you have a lot of card generation in the deck between Priestess, Raven, and then on top of that, we're going to run the Egghead Researcher. So you have a lot of just card generation out of your cards, out of your drops, on top of the Eclipse Dragon also being able to Nightfall 2 units as well, which is really powerful. So essentially, we're just rocking a strong early curve to stop a lot of the mid-range decks. It's really good into like Gangplank MF and Scouts and things like that. You have a really strong early curve with Soldier and Shield Bearer, things along those lines, and you have plenty of little combat tricks with Hush, Sharpshite, single combat, obviously. The rally I choose here is Relentless Pursuit. You can do the Dragon Guard Lookout as well if you want to shift it to more dragons. But I wanted to keep it here so I can just use Spell Mana for the rally, which is solid. Our 4 drops are just our champions here, as discussed, and then our late game is, as I discussed earlier, just heavy dragons up top. Screeching Dragon as well for the 5 drop, as well as Raven, so you have plenty of solid options and bodies here. Plenty of combat tricks, and like I said, good card generation so you don't burn out. One of the biggest problems with dragons in general and things like unit heavy lists, like scouts and such, is that you can just burn out. After your units get removed, you can be kind of just stuck where you don't have any more units to drop, which can be frustrating. On top of that, we have tons of combat tricks, like I said, and Targon and Demacia have a ton of options. So in the article as well, I listed out a ton of stuff, flex options and other cards that you could totally fill in, as well as like what I believe are the core options here for the deck. But you can totally shift this to be a little bit more dragon heavy, and if you do, you could totally run the Dragon Guard units. Guiding Touch is a crazy 2-cost card, really good for dragons. I mean, I'm not even running Pale Cascade, and that seems sacrilege because Pale Cascade's amazing, but Sharpshites felt really good for the +2 health to keep units alive. That's felt really strong. And we have enough card generation where the card draw wasn't 100% needed, but we can 100% rock Pale Cascade as well. Options like that. If you want to shift to even more dragons, you can end up running Dragon's Clutch, and then we have plenty of other dragon units down here, as well as I think Mentor Stones is a really solid unit here as well. If you're looking for another 3-drop, if you want to drop Strafing Strike, which is totally fine because supporting a Shyvana or a Screeching Dragon is really powerful on attack. There's plenty of other options like I'm talking about with Bastion is a solid option here as well if you really want to stay alive a little bit longer with that. Keeping like Shyvana protected. You can totally rock Star Shaping for some heals if you're feeling like you're into a more aggressive meta. Vox is a super solid pick as well. There's other dragons that you could run, but you probably don't need them, so I think this is probably your best bet. And a one-of Judgment is always a fun add as well. So like I said, it's just a strong deck. I think as far as matchups go, you're pretty solid into ramp. You have a lot of usable options that stick the board really hard, are hard to remove with things like Avalanche, Icequake, things like that. You have to directly hit them with Vengeance, but there's so many units here that Vengeance doesn't feel that great. Obviously, a Ruination is strong, but if you're generating cards as you're playing, you can normally back your board up as long as you don't go all in. So ramp feels like a good matchup. The TF like go hard deck that's been really popular lately feels like a pretty solid matchup. If they get their whole thing going, it's solid. But you have plenty of combat tricks to eliminate TF. Discard Aggro is probably one of your worst matchups. You have a strong early curve, but you don't have enough board-wide removal to wipe out much of what they have. And if they can pull your units aside and get a lot of damage there, it really hurts. Scouts is a pretty good matchup. I mean, essentially we have the same game plan as Scouts. We're just trying to stabilize the board early in the mid-range and then finish off with a rally later. One of the cool perks of this deck, though, is when you actually rally with like a full Leona package going on, you can get multiple stuns off and then rally, which is really strong. That happens occasionally as well, which is a really big bonus for the deck. But like I said, into Scouts, you can normally outvalue them, stunning their big targets each turn if you can get the full Daybreak package going, or just challenging out things and just playing around with their single combats as they do things, and you can outpace that deck. And then as far as like a Ezreal Swain matchup, because that's pretty popular as well, that can be hit or miss, but most of the time you can do pretty solid into it. If they do get like a fully leveled Swain and Leviathan on board, it can become problematic with all the stuns. But Infinite Mind Splitter helps lock down those two units at the end of the game. And there's other matchups. I talk about a few more in the article. I won't go into too much more detail. Real quick, as far as a mulliganing tip, really you just want to make sure you're mulliganing for early curve drops, right? Like Scouts, this deck, both of these decks are super easy to master how to mulligan for. There's nothing super fancy we're looking for. Just want your early units. So Soldier's great, Shield Bearer's great, Egghead's great, Priestess is solid. If you have any of those already, it's totally fine to keep Leona. I think Leona mainly is a defensive card. I like using her on defense. So if I have the odd attack token, Leona is a better keep because you can drop her on turn 4 when they play a unit. Or if you have the attack token on evens, Shyvana is actually a better keep than Leona in that sense, because Shyvana will be played on 4 and then attack at a 5/5, and nothing can really compete with a 5/5 on turn 4. That's pretty much the deck, guys. Plenty of adjustments you can make to fit your play style. You can go way more dragon heavy, you can go way more Daybreak heavy. Lots and lots of cards in these two regions that fit into this style of a deck. So I hope you enjoy it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, do all that good stuff. We'll be dropping another episode as well really shortly, so you can check out the TwinSunz podcast. And until next time.